Today I'm playing a new game called Aviassembly. As the name kind of infers, this game is about assembling aviation, basically making aircraft. So today I'm going to be making 3 aircraft, 1 cheap aircraft, 1 mid-range aircraft, and 1 super luxury and expensive aircraft. We're then going to do 2 challenges with each aircraft to see how they perform. Also, disclaimer, so I am completely unbiased. So with that said, let's get into building the first airplane. So starting out with my first aircraft, we're going to be building a very simple, small propeller aircraft. And we're going to try and make it as cheap as we can within limits. So I start out with a simple cockpit, I then shape out the fuselage with the fuselage shaping, which is a really nice feature. Then I add the most basic engine, the wood engine, to the aircraft. Then some wood wings, some wood wheels, and some horizontal and vertical stabilizers for our tail. So I think this little aircraft is looking pretty cute, so let's give it a try. The simple propeller aircraft seems to have a very short takeoff distance and it flies really smoothly. It's almost like a stunt aircraft. I actually really enjoyed flying this thing. So the first challenge we're going to do is see what sort of speeds we can reach in a straight line. And this thing can actually go so fast that it breaks its own wings off, so I don't think that's very good. I mean, we're not even in a dive and it's already breaking its wings. Although these are made of wood, so that might explain it. And the second challenge is going to be going straight in a line and then pulling up really hard and seeing how high we can get. This aircraft has an insane thrust to weight because it can just keep going up and up and up and it can't basically stall ever, which is really impressive. And eventually it got so high that I basically just said it can fly as high as it wants. So yeah, this thing has kind of an infinite ceiling in this game, at least for now. And of course, after I've finished testing every aircraft, I'll leave the cost on screen as well as the costs of the other aircrafts we've already tested so you can compare. So let's move on to the very unique mid-range aircraft. So next I'm going to design the mid-range plane. I decided I wanted to make a supersonic jet style plane. So I started off by using the glider cockpit. Yes, I know that makes 0 sense, but hear me out, it looks cool. I then built out a much longer body than on my previous plane, and I decided to go with a delta wing on this one, which is a interesting design choice, I'm sure you'll think. Then I added some canards on the front because you can't put a delta wing without canards or you're silly. Next, the tail. Then I went through a few different engine designs. I didn't know there were rocket engines in this game, but I found out. But it's too big for this plane, unfortunately, so I went with the supersonic engines. They look really nice. And finally, I added the retractable landing gear, and I called it Simple Delta. I think this plane actually looks pretty cool, so let's get it flying. Starting on the runway, I begin to throttle up, and wow, this thing has insane speed to it. Insane thrust away. Look how fast this thing accelerates. That is absolutely insane. Anyway, as you can see, this thing goes insane speeds in the straight line. So we start with the next challenge and we pull into the climb and look at the absurd amount of speed and altitude this thing has taken. That is insane. And that's only with 2 engines. Imagine if I put like 10 on this thing. Also, every time I fly this thing, the tail just breaks off, but it flies completely fine somehow. So I guess that's fine. The delta wing seems to be completely fine with taking the brunt of this absolute speed. And if we look behind us, it actually looks like some time warp effect or something. It's super weird. But yeah, I really like this design. You can now see the cost of it on screen, and let's finally move on to the last extremely luxury aircraft. So finally, we're going to move on to the final aircraft today. This is going to be a luxury airliner style build, so let's get on with it. I start with this airliner style cockpit. There is a few different ones, but I thought the bigger one would be better. It would be more expensive and look more expensive. It would also let me build a bigger aircraft, which would also be more expensive. I then made a very long fuselage and then tapered it out like I did with the other ones. Then I added the big wing, which is, well, that's the name of the part. It's a big wing. It's an airliner wing, although it's not very big on this build, but it's fine. We'll just go with it. That's the biggest wing I can get. Then we do the tail. I decided to go with like a meteor style tail. This probably has a name. I don't know the name. It's like a T style tail. Then I add the retractable landing gear. Although after this, I then fiddle around changing the gear and the engines until we eventually make it fit. It takes a very long time just fiddling around trying to make it fit. There's not a lot of room on these wings, and I added the biggest airliner engines I could possibly fit on here, so it is quite a squeeze, but eventually we figured out, and I paint it gold, and then we're ready to fly. So we launch on the runway, and this thing does not seem to want to sit straight. The landing gear, do not let it do that, and also the weight of it. But it's fine, we take off, and this thing is insanely slow. Like, insanely slow. I'm pretty sure this is slower than the propeller aircraft, which is just crazy to me. It also flies terribly, which I guess makes sense. It's like super heavy, but it is just awful to fly. But anyway, we're going to do the straight line speed test, and it's not performing the best, I would say, especially compared to the middle aircraft, not really doing very well. Maybe I needed more engines or smaller engines or something, I don't know. It's not doing great. So let's test out the pitch up tests as well, and we are also ascending very slowly. We are losing speed as we're ascending, which is something the other two aircraft didn't really experience a lot. And it's actually going to stall. This is the first aircraft to fully stall during the climb. And we almost even smash into the ground. So yeah, this thing is just not good to fly. Not worth the amount of money that it costs to build by the looks of it. So there you go. On screen is all the prices for all three aircraft. As you can see, the most expensive one is the airliner, the middle one is the middle most expensive, and the propeller aircraft is obviously the cheapest by far. So to end the video, what do I think about this game? First of all, this game is in early access, and as I said, I got given a Steam key from the developer, but I think it looks really fun. It does feel quite arcadey, I guess, and I guess that's what they're going for. And I'm sure as time goes on, it will get updates and get some new stuff added to it. There is a campaign mode. I was playing the sandbox today, but yeah, there is a campaign mode. I haven't played it, but I've heard it's good at the start, but not as good as at the end, because it gets a bit repetitive. Haven't verified that myself, but I'll have to play it eventually, maybe on stream, we'll see. But yeah, I'd recommend you try this game out if you like aircraft building games. It's more of a goofy aircraft building game, but that's fine. And let me know what you think of it in the comments. As always, I'd like to thank our members, Mr. Spherical, Sean Plays Too Much, Carnassa, Pedro, Ragnarok, and AdamCat for supplying the funding for the music here during the video. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.